A very happy good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We had a great day. All the sessions, inaugural session followed by, we had 3 into 2, 6 thematic sessions over there, and we are coming in the evening to relax. And this is going to be the vision address, and we have an outstanding leader to chair the session, Mr. Omesh Saigal, one of the outstanding IAS officers, and he's also a technology season from IIT Kharagpur. We have 2 presidents of IIT Kharagpur today, sir. IIT Kharagpur, 2 professors made presentation the last one also, and joined the administrator 64, and also brief teaching stint. He has been Delhi cadre for 38 years, and he has worked as president of NDMC. He was one of the important local bodies here, and also chairman MD of Delhi State Industrial Development Corporation and chief secretary of Delhi. And he has been subsequently secretary to Government of India, food industries in Government of India, and post-retirement he has been working, chairing various committees of Delhi Municipal Corporation to rationalize NDMC financial issues, and also NCR Planning Board to prepare the regional plan. A prolific writer, that's more important in the media. He comes at regular intervals, speaker. His research on potential EVM misuse led to his letter to the Prime Minister, contribute to the adoption of VVPAT. So very good. So can I request, put your hands together in welcoming Omesh Saigal Saab to kindly come and take the chair. He will be chairing the session. We have 3 distinguished vision address speakers, as we always have. And to start with is Ms. Anaclaudia Rossbach. She is the Executive Director of UN Habitat and an economist with over 20 years of experience in housing, informal settlement and urban policies. She was appointed the Executive Director of UN Habitat by the Undersecretary as an Undersecretary General level by the General Assembly following UN Secretary General's Order of 2024, and I'm happy she was also there in the inaugural session, and she was also Director of the Latin American and Caribbean, the Lincoln Institute of Land Policy, Regional Manager of City Alliance, where she founded the Urban Housing Practitioners Hub. Prior to that, the World Bank, she oversees the development and implementation of the Brazilian housing and slum upgrading policy. Her roots are from Brazil. I forgot to indicate that. Ms. Rosenbach is actively contributed to global urban policy discussions and has a strong academic presence in the field. And very happy in the inaugural session also, she talked about World Urban Forum. Ma'am, I'm a special welcome to you. I'm glad you are going to be the first vision address speaker there. Let me introduce Srikanth Viswanathan. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Janagraha Center for Citizenship and Democracy at Bangalore, India-based non-profit work towards mission of transforming quality of life in Indian cities and towns. He also serves as Executive Director of Jana Urban Space Foundation, a sister organization of Janagraha that works on the spatial planning and design issues. Srikanth is also one of the leading practitioners of city systems reforms and champions in the application of systems thinking of urban reform agendas. He works closely with senior leadership in the central government and state governments and other constitutional bodies, along with the Controller and Auditor General of India and the Finance Commission of India. That's why he's going to talk of the 16th Finance Commission report to shape the implemented long-term reforms. An associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants over 23 years, Srikanth worked in the banking and audit sector for over last 14 years, 15 years time period. So we'll have a global dimension for Madam. You will have all the fiscal issues coming and the state of health, financial health of all local bodies, what needs to be done to bring, as the Honorable Minister said, of bringing additional money. He talked of the Urban Challenge Fund also morning. I'm sure he'll open. That will bring us to the most important one, to practitioners. Professor T Ravindran, architect, one of our friends for the last 40 years time period, an architect, an urban designer practicing from Delhi. KT, start walking now onto the dais. Currently member of the Kerala State Urbanization Commission, the first state urbanization commission where we have worked after Charles Correa Commission of mid-80s there, the first state to come with an urbanization commission and a report. And I had the pleasure of working along with KT as a member of the Kerala State Urban Policy Commission there. Coincidentally, also in that particular component there, Srikanth also helped us in the housing finance component, infrastructure finance also. So we are, three of us have some common link on the Kerala urban policy one. So it was not by design. So he has been there, and he is also trustee of the Madhavan Nair Foundation, Kochi, chairman of the governing committee of Goa College of Architecture, Delhi Public Lectures, and one of the most important, he has been the chairman of the Delhi Urban Arts Commission. Very important, as a new body above local bodies to deal with the architecture, aesthetics, and link of the old and the new construction blending with each other. And is also founding president of the Urban Designers as a new group than architects and planners and town planners. Urban design is a three-dimensional master planning initiative there. And Katie is going to talk in terms of with all the urbanization going to take place, how would it be the built environment coming around? Sir, Saigal sir, so you have three outstanding speakers in front of you. I would like you to kindly take over. Whichever order, I thought ladies first we identified, ma'am. Only reason is because she has got to go also another session a little later after this in the ISC for one more group later. So in that order, so she can be permitted first with little Q&A at the end of each address. 5 minutes of time for each one is supposed to speak for 25 minutes. 25 minutes they'll talk, 25 minutes Q&A. That will be over. The next vision address person can be called. You have the order in the same way. Right or wrong, they're sitting in the same 1, 2, 3 order over there. I request you to kindly take over, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. I think I'm the wrong person to chair the session. I have experts sitting on both sides, and I'm the only generalist. But I still consider that I represent the common man, and I know the problems that we have faced in these cities. Before I start with the experts, I'll just give you some data. I'm sure you already have that data. Delhi population has gone up 25 times in the last 75 years. The population of Madras and Chennai and Mumbai has gone up about 8 times. Calcutta is the only city which has grown with some sort of patience, that is 4 times. And by common opinion, Calcutta is the cleanest, the best administered, and the best city amongst these 4. And Delhi, which has grown 25 times, which is the capital of the country, and which should have actually been the model for city development, is actually the biggest laggard. Before I hand over to the experts, I'll just give you a little bit of data on Delhi, which is an area on which I have spent a lot of time. See, whenever the rain comes, you have flooded roads, you have overflowing drains, and you have all your flyovers and fly-unders totally submerged. And for days together, the city comes to a halt. And we blame one government or the other. We say, okay, this guy has gone, the other guy will come, it will improve. But somehow nothing happens. We're going from bad to worse. I don't think I may be very right, but I have analyzed the problem as total lack of technology in development of roads and the drains along with roads. Some 150 years back, the PWD code was written, where you said wherever there is a road, there will be a drain on the both sides of the road, and the drain will flow into the river or wherever it is. Most of the cities, early cities, were either on the river front or they were in the seaside. So there was a very natural flow of water either into the sea or into the river. Delhi, for instance, started off with Ridge, where the Rashtrapati Bhavan is there, that is New Delhi, and Old Delhi, where the Kingsway Camp and all is there. Both of them are on a ridge, on the high ground. The rest of Delhi, suddenly these millions of refugees turned in, is in north, south, east. Most of these areas are level with the river. So whenever the river is in spate, to save the country from the city from floods, you have made embankments, large embankments, which allows the river to rise between the embankments. Have you ever wondered what happened to the water that was to flow from the roads, drains on the roads, into the river? How will it ever go? It can't go. So it remains there. So we find our flooded roads. The second problem that the city faces now here, I don't really have a solution, but I think technology will be the only answer to this problem. We can't just build designs made a century back and continue with those designs thoughtlessly. And somehow, I found one pavilion here which is on groundwater harvesting. Somehow we have to clean this water to an extent that we can harvest it into the ground. That will solve two problems. The second problem of Delhi is water supply. There's only one river that carries water for Haryana, Punjab, and subsequently for UP. All there we have a sharing of water, then Semna and then the Ganga. Two rivers. With this huge increase of population, the water is not adequate. And we always find that about 30, 40, especially in Delhi, 40% of the area has no water supply at all, and they have to depend on tankers. Now that is not how a capital should run. Delhi gets 1 million cubic meters of rainfall every year. One quarter of that goes into our reservoirs, the underground reservoir, and is used by Jal Board to pump into the city. The remaining either doesn't go in or is wasted here and there. So maybe the solution lies in technology and taking water from the roads into the ground. I said maybe, because I think it is for the experts and the technologists to develop. We can have technology or not. I found here a stall which says they are working on it. I hope they can succeed in this, because this is a major, solve a major problem of Delhi. Pollution. If you see the pollution levels and the population levels, you can see the huge important correlation with the two. As the population is going up, the pollution level is going up. Now we can say it is something happening to the agriculture in Punjab, or it's something else we are doing here. But the fact remains that population is the main source. For every two people, there is one vehicle, either a two-wheeler or a three-wheeler or a four-wheeler in Delhi. And all these run on old technology, which means IC engines. It is 7 to 8 or 10% of the pollution comes from these sources, and I think more than that. Similarly, dust. Again, it is because of the huge amount of construction taking place, hardly any green areas left in the city, that we get more dust in the city. Now what do? All that Delhi has done has failed to control the population. In 85, the National Capital Region Planning Board was set up, a total flop. I have headed that for 4 years, and I beg forgiveness that we were not able to do much. How else do you control the population? This is not Peking, this is not Beijing, that you can now force only 10 million people to come and not even one more. You can't do that. This is a democratic country. How do you do that? Again, it is a technological problem, and I'm sure technology can find a way of solving this problem. Now I can go on like this, but I don't want to, because I don't want to start on a negative note. And I will now request Madam Rossbach to speak to us. I wish you can deal with some of the problems that I have mentioned, but even if you can't, it doesn't matter. Carry on. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, sir. I don't know if I can answer to your questions, but certainly I can invite you to work on these questions together. And we have a couple of platforms that I'm talking about for that. So we have prepared just a couple of slides on the strategic direction of UN Habitat. I was speaking this morning. So UN Habitat is the UN entity that looks at cities and communities. We are basically the custodians of SDG 11. And we follow the principles of the New Urban Agenda that speaks to many areas that you mentioned at the beginning, right? And lays the principles that should be embedded in national urban policies, urban investments, but also urban plans at the local level. A couple of examples, the New Urban Agenda talks about putting people at the center. It talks about putting housing at the center, talks about embedding the whole city, the real city, including informal settlements, vulnerable, marginalized areas into city planning, making sure that they are integrated. A New Urban Agenda talks about participation, you mentioned participation, and multi-level governance. So the Urban Agenda says, okay, the change is local because we are talking about land, we are talking about territory, and this is a local attribution. But cities, local regional governments, authorities, they cannot do much if they don't have the proper national frameworks, if the laws are not there, if the policies are not there, and if the money is not there, right? The money is needed is at the national level. So this is UN Habitat. And this year, we celebrate 10 years of the New Urban Agenda that was approved in 2016 by the member states of the United Nations in the Habitat 3 conference in Quito, Ecuador. So this year in New York in July, we're going to go back and see what happened in the last 10 years and what is it that we have to look for the next 10 years. And all the problems, sir, that you mentioned in your opening are present in many metropolitan areas all over the world, right? So what's the situation that we're talking about right now? We are talking about a world that is more than 50% urbanized and reaching towards 70% urbanization level in 2050. We are talking about a world where about 2 billion people will be moving to cities, especially 90% of that is going to take place in Southeast Asia and in Africa. And this morning, we spoke about the 400 million that are coming to cities in India. So when I look at our mandate, the New Urban Agenda, the next 20 years, I have a huge focus on this 2 billion coming to cities and 400 in India. So India is key for us for the next 10 years of the New Urban Agenda, right? And what kind of cities we are talking about? You lay the ground, right? We're talking about cities that haven't been able to cope with the flows of migration. I come from Brazil, from Latin America. It's a typical example. In Latin America and in Brazil specifically, the urbanization happened already in a very accelerated pace in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and the cities were not prepared. They didn't plan for that. The national policies weren't able to reach to the majority of the population, and inequality and poverty prevailed. So people just didn't have money to buy or rent houses in the markets. Markets very limited to 5, maximum 10, 12% of the households of the country, and the countries with limited fiscal capacity to invest also in subsidies, housing subsidies, and policies, and so on. The result of that for Latin America, expansion of metropolitan areas, prevalence of informal settlements and slums in many areas, and highly segregated cities. And this is actually the opposite of the New Urban Agenda. So looking at the future, this is what actually we have to avoid, right? So we have to be able to plan for the future, to plan for the young people actually that are coming, because an important bulk of this flow will be represented by young people. But what is the core of that? And I don't know, can I move the slides? Or let me check. Yeah. So, but the situation that we are also facing right now, and I want to highlight this, I spoke briefly this morning, it's a situation where we are facing a global housing crisis. And people coming to city, people in cities, so housing is a critical component. So if there's no shelter, cities will not be able to cope with that. And we are talking about today a situation where in the world we have almost 3 billion people living in inadequate housing, almost 3 billion, it's a large number, more than 1 billion living in informal settlements, and more than 300 million people living in situation of homelessness. Adding to that, a historical affordability crisis. So what I mentioned before, that especially in the Global South, I was talking about Latin America, but it also works for the Global South, people's salary weren't enough to buy or rent houses in the markets. So now this is happening also in the Global North. So in Europe, in North America, young people, they haven't been able to find a place to live. Aging population, elderly, they cannot stay where they are because the cost of living has become a strong issue, and it's also became a very strong political issue. But when we talk about housing today, we cannot talking about just the bricks, right, or the building itself. We have to make sure, and as part of the UN, we have to make sure that housing connects the SDGs, right? The Sustainable Development Goals, we have the deadline in 2030, the Agenda 2030, and question mark, how can we achieve that without roofs? Question mark, how can we use housing to connect people to services, to healthcare, to education, to jobs, to employments, because if you don't have an address, you cannot get a job or start your business. If you don't have a safe place to stay, you're going to become sick and children are not going to attend school. So, and we have to understand that as we build houses to attend the social needs, we are building cities. And the way we build cities, the way we address the housing needs right now, or the way the market is responding to the housing demand is affecting everything that was mentioned at the beginning, right, in terms of building the city. So last year at the UN Habitat Assembly, 105 member states voted for our strategic plan. And the vote was to prioritize access to housing, land, basic services, including the transformation of informal settlements. Understanding that looking at housing in a moment where we are living a global housing crisis, in a moment where we will have 2 billion people coming to cities in the next decades, it's critical if we talk about sustainable cities, if we talk about sustainable urbanizations. The way we'll build our house will leave a footprint in terms of environment. It will have a climate impact, and we are facing serious climate challenges. Housing is a means to overcome poverty, overcome inequality, but also to generate economic inputs at the local level and at the national level to the GDPs. And housing is critical to prepare for disasters that are happening in a more intense and surprising way everywhere in the globe, and also to help us to recover. So it's not enough to build houses, we have to build also resilient houses because we are facing this situation in terms of exposure to climate events and disasters. So but we cannot build anywhere. We learned in the last 50 years since Habitat was created that we need to plan right. We need to locate right. If we plan right, we will also be able to connect investments. We learn that participatory multi-level governance is critical. We learn that we have to work in coalitions. We learn that we need to have more information and more research. And we learn that we need to invest more in cities. So we have to mobilize more resources for cities, internationally and domestically, because cities also represent 80% of the GDP. So this investment will represent also a return for the society. So this is in a nutshell our strategic plan. Just to share about UN Habitat, we have a strong presence in the Global South because this is where our technical assistance is required, but we have a footprint also in Europe, we have a footprint in North America because this is also where we leverage also knowledge, innovation, and resources for our work. We have tradition within the UN system of engaging with local and regional governments, engaging at the city level, in localizing the 2030 agenda, as I spoke. Last year, we supported the Secretary General. He sent a report to the General Assembly with recommendations on how local governments can be strengthened within the UN system, understanding that the change is actually local, that without the local action, we'll not be able to address the climate challenges, we'll not be able to address the sustainable development challenges. So we have a strong focus on capacity building, but also a strong focus on providing technical assistance at the local level in terms of urban planning, public spaces, access to basic services, water, sanitation, waste management, on housing and informal settlements, and on municipal finance. So we gained this territory, this status, let's say so, within the UN, and we also have evolved in terms of providing technical assistance at the city level through networks and through events like this. So thank you so much for organizing this event, Suresh, again, because this is a way for us to get together, to advocate, to share knowledge, and to share practices on how to overcome the challenge that we have. So a critical moment for us this year, I hope to have you with us, will be the World Urban Forum 13 in Baku, Azerbaijan in May, from the 17th to the 22nd. Huge platform for us to come together, to form a coalition, to find solutions to the issues that you raised, to exchange practices, and to be stronger together. We're going to be together also in Nairobi, bringing the climate aspect to the urban agenda. In July, reviewing the new urban agenda after 10 years and reviewing SDG 11, and at COP31 also bring strongly the climate perspective, the urban perspective up to climate change. Good news on that front, we're launching a report at the World Urban Forum. We found out that from NDCs 2.0 to NDCs 3.0, we have doubled the number of national reports that recognize that working in urban development is critical to address climate challenges. Let's remember that cities represent 70% of emissions, large percent of energy consumption, and buildings, a strong part of that. And among those, 50% recognize that working around housing and informal settlements is critical to address climate change. So this is the roadmap for this year. This is how UN Habitat has been working and how we want to work with you at the World Urban Forum and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, she has to go for another meeting. So before she goes, I think she'll take questions and would like to hear comments, if any, from anyone in the audience or any of us here. Yes, please come here.
Greetings to you, ma'am, the chair, the dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, and this august assembly. I am Ajay Kumar Harit, the moisture man of India, representing ICA Waterproofs Private Limited. Ma'am, my question to you, we are actually talking of carbon footprints. The stark reality is that the service life of the structures worldwide is going down because of poor waterproofing, because of the moisture, So we are basically reconstructing buildings as early as 20 to 30 years, creating a large footprints. So the reason is that we don't have a audit system for the quality of structures. So I have been given a task 10 years back by my mentor and IITian, the author of StatPro, Professor Agarwal, to standardize construction by bringing in a moisture audit. Ma'am, I plead to you that can we put in moisture audit in construction of urbanized spaces? Thank you.
Others? I think there are others
Any other comments, please?
over there.
Please come.
There's a mic there. There's a mic there.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Ma'am, one quick question because we were talking about housing. Your opinion on housing efforts like the concept Earthship by Michael Reynolds. Have you heard? So he basically talks about like he calls it Earthship because it's like a single premises which has like a circular kind of water management, food management kind of a thing, and insulation by waste products like waste tires, and it's like a huge one single setup. I'm trying to wonder if when you talk about housing for homeless, are there sustainable options that we are looking at, or what kind of urban settlements are we talking about? Earthship just came to mind, but any comment on that?
Thank you. Any other comments, please? Please.
Should I ask him later? Yeah, you can ask. Okay. Hello, sir. My name is Amit Agrawal. I am the MD of DSI Robotics, India's first indigenous robotics company. My question to you is very brief. Since you have been, you chaired the pollution board for Delhi, so do you think that one of the major reasons for pollution is also the practice of cleaning the drains and sewers and dumping the waste on the roads, for the simple reason that they want to quantify the silt, which is not needed to be quantified, as the payments are basically on meter basis in sewerage, while in drainage they are doing it now on cubic meter basis. Without any reason, they could have easily converted to square meter basis. Now, when this huge quantities, like for example, right now Sunehri Pul Nala is being cleaned, so around 55,000 cubic meter of silt is being dumped on that area, and that is being left to dry over 6 months. So past 6 months, the desilting is happening, 25,000 cubic meters is there, right? Similarly, this is just one example, and this is a normal practice which is being done. So does it contribute to to the air pollution and road pollution as well? I mean, it does, but is there any way that the department or the cities should take action on it, or they can take action on it, and just remove the practice by simply conversion of payment methods and measurement methods from cubic meter to square meter or a per meter basis? Thank you, sir.
I don't think this will solve the problem. The basic problem is not in how it is defined. The basic problem is that it is there. People are getting affected.
No,
and
sir.
getting affected.
Sir,
And
sir,
we have to do something drastic to improve this. I
You were-
think our madam here can make some interesting observations on this.
This specific, I'll leave to the locals. And I think the gentleman already responded his own question. And of course, standards are critical, right? We have to look at. There's one more point.
Hi,
Oh, sorry.
my name is Rakesh Mehrotra. I am representing Institution of Public Health Engineers. My question is related to what Madam said, that there is a lot of housing issues, shelter issues in developing countries particularly. In our country, I don't know whether my question is appropriate. If we talk about Delhi, 80% of Delhi, Umesh sir will know better, 80% of Delhi is once upon a time unauthorized or today unauthorized. Now, it must be having to do with some flaw in our policies. If land is available for unauthorized, why it did not become authorized? If land was available for unauthorized colonization, it is due to rules, it is due to some systemic flaw. That is one point. The second point is that what is being touted, I'm using a bad word, what is being touted as affordable housing, in my opinion, I don't know, I have seen advertisements from Haryana, from where our minister is hailing from, our urban development minister is hailing from. The advertisement says nearly 1 lakh rupees per square meter is the land price. And we are calling it affordable. Affordable for whom? Affordable for top 3% population or for whom? I'm just seeking answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So yeah, the needs are massive indeed, and I think the balance that we have to find is how can we, address urgently the massive needs, because as we speak, 1 billion in informal settlements, 300 million homelessness, and so on. So we have to address this situation urgently. And we also say that we need 96,000 houses a day to cover the demands and so on. And how we do that in a sustainable way. In terms of location, and you spoke about land, the New Urban Agenda talks about the social and ecological function of the land. And this is a principle that has been embedded in many urban plans and even legal frameworks in the Global South. So we have to be very mindful about the location, because if we keep expanding the urban footprint as we are doing right now, we are going to seriously threaten food security and the environment. We are already doing. This is the reason why big metropolises are facing droughts and floods and fires and landslides and you name it. We are growing all over the world. It's not only here. More than 50% of the growth in the territory vis-a-vis the growth of the population. So it's unneeded urban growth. So we have to look at densification. We have to maximize the vacant, underutilized spaces in cities, the land that could be available for housing, and explore that at the maximum scale. At the same time, make sure that we use construction materials that are sustainable, strengthening the circular economy, etc. I don't know this specific methodology, but I think we should try to maximize sustainable technologies and methodologies, but also affordable. And you mentioned affordability, right? Still a challenge globally that we build sustainably, affordable, and massively. So this is where we have to put our heads together and work also with the private sector to review the business model that are out there, and make sure that the systems work, the financial systems, the money, and the land planning and the land use. Yeah.
Good, wonderful.
I think I have to go, right?
Yeah.
I feel the pressure.
Yeah,
I
that's why
apologize
I
to my
came around.
colleagues, panelists. Yeah.
Could we request the chairman to kindly hand over the speaker's minister to ma'am? Come forward. You can bring them. They want to give one more plan to you. You gave in the morning, but you gave it in plastic, but it's good. Investment in environment fund. So he'll give it. I can hold it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. We can continue our thing. Request. No, they'll take it. The youngsters, they'll take it. There are a lot of people. Sir, we can continue, sir. Madam will take leave.
Great to you.
As indicated, madam has to go for another session there, so she will take leave now.
Grateful to
Thank you very
ma'am,
much.
for coming here and
Thank you very much.
enlightening us with your views.
With your permission.
We'll now go to our next speaker. This is Mr. Srikanth Viswanathan, the youngest of the lot. And he is the Chief Executive Officer of the Janagraha Center of Citizenship and Democracy, a Bangalore, India-based non-profit working towards the mission of translational quality life in India's cities and towns. He also serves as the Executive Director of Jana Urban Space Foundation, sister organization of Janagraha that works on the spatial planning and design of cities. Srikanth is one of the India's leading practitioners of city systems reforms and champions the application of systems thinking of urban reform agendas. He works closely with the senior leadership in union and state governments and constitutional bodies such as the Controller and Auditor General of India, Finance Commission, to shape and implement long-term reforms to city systems in India. He is an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for over 23 years. Srikanth worked on banking and audit before joining Janagraha in 2011. Mr. Srikanth.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I don't have a presentation. Some elderly gentleman mentioned to me a few years ago that power corrupts and PowerPoint corrupts absolutely. Since then, it's been quite judicious in the use of slides. As a community, we Indians are a proud people. We are extremely proud of an ancient civilization, and we are proud of the accomplishments of a modern and young nation state. From our rich culture and heritage and art forms to the breathtaking advances we've made as a country with respect to space exploration, rocketry, defense, nuclear energy, etc., we have much to be proud of. But the irony that stares us on our face is, why are we able to send rockets into space, but why are we not able to lay good roads in our cities? Why can't we manage traffic? Why are we not able to pick up our garbage and treat our waste? It's a major contradiction staring us in our face as a people. Why? Why are our cities the way they are? This is an important question for us in the 21st century that is impacting us and our families on a daily basis as we step out of our homes onto the streets. But before we can answer that question, let me ask you a couple of questions. Please indulge me. How many of you here have not heard of Yogi Adityanath? Anybody here who has not heard of Yogi Adityanath? Nobody. Everybody has heard of Yogi Adityanath. And how many of you have not heard of Zohran Mamdani? How many of you have not heard of Zohran Mamdani? Okay, yeah, there's nothing to feel ashamed. There are 3-4 people who have not heard of Zohran Mamdani. How many of you have not heard of Ritu Tavde? Many of you have not heard of Ritu Tavde. How many of you have not heard of Raja Iqbal Singh? Many of you have not heard of Raja Iqbal Singh, right? So, very few of you have not heard of Zohran Mamdani, but many of you have not heard of Raja Iqbal Singh and Ritu Tavde. I also had to Google them. I also had to Google Ritu Tavde and Raja Iqbal Singh. They are the mayors of Mumbai and Delhi respectively. Ritu Tavde is the mayor of Mumbai, Raja Iqbal Singh is the mayor of Delhi. The fact that most of us, don't know the name of the mayor of 2 of our largest cities, which have economies of the size of middle-income countries, is in some ways symptomatic of the challenge we are facing. We have to bear in mind that no country in the world has achieved high economic growth, has achieved poverty alleviation and human development goals without urbanizing well. And no city in the world has urbanized well without strong local governments, without, in most cases, a single political owner. In some cases, it's been a single bureaucratic owner, but in most cases, by and large, globally, it's a single political owner. This lies at the heart of the urban problem in India. Now, this has side effects. So at Janagraha, we feel there are three important city systems which underlie the challenges that we face in our cities. I spoke about one of them, which is decentralized governance, not having empowered mayors and councils. Now, there are two other city systems which are directly impacted by this. One is of urban planning and design, about which Mr. Ravindran will speak about. And the other is state capacities relating to public finances and human resources. Having adequate number of people with skills and competencies to govern our cities. Now, the fragmentation in accountability and governance, which is caused by not having effective mayors and councils, has a direct impact on the quality of urban planning and design and of state capacities. Now, India traditionally has done very poorly in the pace at which we are improving in this particular area. We've made advancements in several other areas, which is handled directly by governments. If you take, for example, UPI, digital payments, the number of people who have opened bank accounts, or the kilometers of highways that are getting built, number of airports that are getting created, or even rural road connectivity, we've done really well. But in the pace of urban governance reforms, we've been terribly slow, even compared to other countries in the global south. Philippines, Indonesia, South Africa, Brazil, Mexico, many of them may have similar challenges, in some cases worse challenges, etc. But when it comes to design of urban governance, India stands somewhat poor in the pace at which we improved. In this context, the 16th Finance Commission, whose report was submitted in the Parliament and substantially accepted by the Parliament in February, has shown a ray of light. Because they've allocated what is an unprecedented amount of money for urban local governments in India. It is $39 billion over 5 years, or 3.6 lakh crores. Significantly higher, 2.3 times more than what was allocated by the 15th Finance Commission, and much larger than centrally sponsored schemes and missions, which themselves were fairly remarkable in the size of the outlay. Now, what excites me about this funding is what it can do to our small cities and towns. I believe we need a different set of treatments, maybe something like an open heart surgery for our really large cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, etc. But we have an opportunity with respect to our small cities and towns. India has a very unique pattern of urbanization. You have 40 plus cities with a population of more than 1 million or 10 lakhs, which host 1/3 of our urban population. We have 400 plus cities with a population of more than 1 lakh, which host another 1/3 of our population. But we have more than 4,000 cities, which are very tiny, small cities with less than 1 lakh population, which host another 1/3 of our population. So 40 plus 1/3, 400 plus 1/3, 4,000 plus 1/3. But in the next 20 years, while we imagine growth in urban population as people moving from one place to the other, much of India's urbanization will happen as in situ urbanization. Villages becoming cities where they are. Yes, there will be movement of people to a certain extent, but a disproportionate share of urbanization in India will be in situ urbanization. Gram panchayats becoming nagar panchayats. 2 gram panchayats coming together to become a municipality. Or gram panchayats in the peripheral areas of large cities getting absorbed into those cities, etc. But the tantalizing possibility that the 16th Finance Commission has laid out with an unprecedented amount of capital is that we can prevent the mistakes of our large cities from happening in our smaller cities. Traditionally, we've been obsessed in some ways as a country about only our large cities. And the reason for that is our larger cities have had a disproportionate share in economic growth, job creation, etc. But we are figuring out why we are not able to balance that growth and livability. Whenever our cities have achieved rapid economic growth, livability has plummeted. We've not been able to balance the two. Yes, there are examples like Tokyo, etc., which have been able to manage the two even at spectacular scales of 40 million people, etc. But we have not been able to manage that. Delhi and Mumbai are old examples. Bangalore is a very new example. And probably Chennai, Hyderabad, etc. are emerging examples. But with our smaller cities and towns, we have an opportunity to prevent this from happening. We should be able to provide an opportunity for 300, 400 million people who are not going to physically move, but whose settlements are going to organically become cities, not to be subject to forced migration. They should be able to lead a decent quality of life where they live. That's the opportunity that 16th Finance Commission has opened up. The second reason for that is it's not just the amount of money. Close to 2 lakh crores of this money will be untied funds, which means urban local governments can apply them the way they deem fit, responding to the local context and the local needs and priorities, which was not the case with 15th Finance Commission, where effectively the percentage of untied grants was as low as only 21%. They had to spend most of the money only on water, sanitation, including solid waste management and air quality. Whereas now this opens up the possibility. Add to this the irony that while you haven't heard of Ritu Taude and Raja Iqbal Singh, and by the way, Raja Iqbal Singh, who is the mayor of Delhi, has a term of 1 year. While your chief minister and prime ministers have a term of 5 years, the mayor of Delhi has a term of grand total of 1 year. The mayor of Bangalore, even after an amendment, has a term of 2.5 years. But really small towns in some of our less urbanized states have directly elected chairpersons. Mayors in small cities are called chairpersons of 5 years. I visited 2 such small towns in Uttar Pradesh, population between 25,000 to 40,000. They are directly elected with a term of 5 years. Imagine such large funding with the freedom to deploy it the way you deem fit, with an empowered local government, can create discernible difference in what I would call as first mile infrastructure and service delivery. You can make a difference at the first mile. Now, that's the possibility that the 16th Finance Commission grants open up. There are several other provisions in the 16th Finance Commission. Some of them are also below par, right? Things that we would have expected them to do, they may not have done. So I'm not saying that it's a perfect report. But add to this the fact that they have continued with the mandatory condition of these urban local governments publishing their audited annual accounts. Until 2020, no city in India, most cities in India, I would be wrong in saying no, most ULGs in India were not publishing their audited annual accounts every year. And most municipal laws even now are open-ended about how that needs to be published, by what time that needs to be published. But the 15th Finance Commission introduced a basic condition saying, we will give you money, but please publish your audited accounts. And since 2020, and all of you can visit this portal called cityfinance.in, CITYFINANCE, cityfinance.in, more than 4,300 out of 4,900 urban local governments in India have published their audited annual accounts. And you can pick the city you live in and you can compare the performance of your city with other cities in India over time. And it allows you to analyze, etc. And this mandate of publishing the audited annual accounts, which is not there in the municipal law but was brought in by the 15th Finance Commission as a mandatory condition, has been continued by the 16th Finance Commission. So there is also an emphasis on public finance accountability. But we need to go further. Unlike union budgets, which have some confidential information, you don't want to reveal full details of border infrastructure. You don't want to reveal full details of what defense equipment you're buying or what kind of defense expenditure you are investing in. And revealing full details of the union budget may also create speculative trading in stock markets, etc. But there are no such concerns with respect to municipal budgets and expenditure. Literally every single rupee spent on any cause in any area of the city every day can be published. Should be published. Because public finance, unlike say urban planning or staffing reforms, etc., offers us a common language. Whether you're a contractor or you're a councillor or an MLA or an MP or a bureaucrat or a citizen, everybody understands the language of money. It offers us a common vocabulary, syntax, and language. And good people and bad people. Everybody understands this language. If you are able to usher in radical transparency in first mile spending, which means by street, by civic work and project, if a citizen is able to access where exactly is money going in my neighborhood, what work is happening? Is it happening on footpath or street lights? Is the empty plot of land near my house being used for a primary healthcare center or a library or a park? Who is the contractor? Can I see a copy of the tender? By how much is the budget? By when are they supposed to complete the work, etc.? Then that essentially can lead to better accountability at the first mile. And that builds greater levels of trust between communities and local governments. That indeed is the foundation of our democracy. As a country, we've chosen democratic governance and accountability as a pathway to human development. We don't have a choice. As Sir mentioned, we are not China. We have chosen this collectively. How does it look like at the neighborhood level? Many times we feel this democracy is not working for us. Which democracy is not working for us? It is local democracy that is not working for us. And public finance can be that stitch which is holding this cloth together, this fabric of democracy together. Public finance transparency can tighten this and make sure that this fabric is not getting frayed, is not getting torn. But for this, we will have to work together. Because today, neither the Finance Commission has mandated it, they've only come up to publication of audited annual accounts, nor do municipal acts require this kind of transparency. So if too much money is increasing and you have reasonably empowered mayors in smaller cities, chairpersons in smaller cities, that is also a dangerous combination without accountability and transparency. So there is an opportunity for us as citizens to collectivize and engage with our elected ward councillors at the ward level and with our own local governments to push for more credible spending at the first mile. We don't have a choice. That's the price you pay. That level of vigilance and active citizenship is the price we pay for greater leverage of democracy. How effectively democracy will work for us. So we are moving into an era where the city has become a politically salient entity. You will be surprised to know that in the next 5 years or in the next 7 years, the total amount of investments over a 20-year period that has gone into our cities will reach staggering amounts of close to 10 lakh crores. Already it's at 9 lakh crores. Literally in the next 2-3 years, you will breach 10 lakh crores since 2014-15. So cities have become politically salient finally. In the last 10-12 years, Prime Minister, Chief Ministers of different states, senior bureaucrats are realizing that cities present a challenge and an opportunity we need to spend. But a lot of the spending is going to large infrastructure or to subsidies. It is not coming to strengthening governance. It is not coming for first mile infra and services. Unlike the 16th Finance Commission grants. It's going for metro rail, bridges, flyovers, large scale water supply pipelines, etc. Some of which are important, but we need to maintain a balance. But it is happening without adequate levels of citizen participation and transparency in public finances. Therefore, you are not seeing a natural strengthening of trust. There is continued cynicism because there is no transparency and there is no involvement of the people. So you need city action plans where people are involved to determine the priorities basis which this money can be spent. So the problem of adequacy of money and audited annual accounts is getting solved, but now we need to move towards participation and public finance transparency at the first mile. That is both an opportunity and a challenge, but more an opportunity. But that needs us to do work, not just governments. Because we have to remember that unlike Western democracies, and I will close with this point, unlike Western democracies, India does not have the luxury of having strong state capabilities. I have now worked with governments across levels for 15 years, and I can tell you even today, the more I work with government, the more it is a surprise that the country is even working to this extent, particularly when it comes to the question of cities. Because we've traditionally underinvested in state capabilities with respect to urban governance, including number of people, number of staff in our cities. Our cities are hugely understaffed and their skills and competencies. Therefore, in India, we will need a new model of civil society, businesses, and academia partnering closely with governments, particularly the state government and the local governments, to ensure that the massive funding that is coming is spent well towards outcomes. Typically, in advanced democracies of the West, they were able to do this by the sheer might of their state capabilities. And they were able to develop state capabilities before they developed so fast and they were hit with climate change, etc. India does not have that luxury. We'll need a new model which is based on citizen partnership. We don't have a choice. As citizens, we'll have to spare some of our time, some of our mind space in engaging closely with local governments and state governments, and public finance offers that opportunity. Janagraha as an organization was founded through a participatory budgeting campaign, which was inspired by Porto Alegre in Brazil, from where Ms. Anaclaudia Rossbach hails. So that kind of participation and engagement is what will convert the massive funding that is coming to cities into outcomes that we can see, that we and our families can experience on our street and in our neighborhoods. But that opportunity has presented itself. The onus really is now on us to engage with our local councillors, ward level engineers, to create this first mile change. And in some ways that really would represent the true spirit of democracy. It's not just voting in elections or debating about national politics when primetime television is switched on, but real democracy manifests itself on our street and in our neighborhoods. So can we ensure that this 3.6 lakh crores that has been allocated by the 16th Finance Commission is spent well in our neighborhoods? That question is up to us to answer and carry back tonight. Thank you.
Any questions or comments, please? Come here.
Good evening, sir. Myself, architect Neeraj Deshpande, and I come from northern part of Maharashtra. I would just like to mention, taking inputs from your participatory actions. We at Nandurbar, in context with the G20 that India was hosting, we'd been part of C20 Life working group, and the very point you mentioned, participatory. So we, out of citizens of Nandurbar, ranging from different categories like architects, doctors, agriculturalists, educationalists, we made a group, and we created a pilot project called Vikasit Nandurbar at 2050, falling in line with Vikasit Bharat 2047, and it was a part of C20 policy brief also. So it was considered and it was appreciated as a participatory effort from different parts of and different fabrics of the district coming together to understand what our district, what our cities need, and what better solution we can do, which will help in development of the district. So becoming लाभार्थी से ज़्यादा जन सहभागिता के ऊपर हम काम कर रहे हैं. So अगर at any point of time, if we can collaborate and Janagraha can guide us at some point, we'll be very happy to take your help, sir. Thank you.
We can connect offline. And what you've just now said is very rare to hear such stories from our large cities. So our smaller cities will hold out hope.
Hello.
Yes, please.
I am Rakesh Mehrotra, representing IPHE. I just wanted to, I was very impressed by what Viswanathan sir said about the participatory part. But as of now, we have got elected corporators. Now, how do we go about the participatory? One which is already happening or always happens, is that some people themselves take initiative and they start there. But I feel, since you have said that Finance Commission is asking for it, we need some formal mechanism. Do you think that simply RWAs could be a part of in bigger cities and in larger cities with more than 10 lakh population?
Sure.
Please, sir.
Sir, basically, Finance Commission has not asked for participation. It's a proposition that I'm laying forward, that if that money has to be used well, then you need participation and transparency. The Constitution provides for ward committees. Most municipal laws in India have also provided for ward committees, but states have not followed through by notifying rules. And our local governments, municipalities, don't have adequate number of ward level engineers and other ward level officials to host those ward committees. So the first action is, if as a group of citizens, 10 or 15 people get together and push the state government and to notify rules for ward committee and push the municipality to have those ward committees without the rules, that will be the first beginning. So the ward committee is the platform for citizen participation. It's not working in most parts of India, but there are some cities and some wards, it's working, though not very formally.
Yes, please.
Good evening, sir. Can I add? Hello. Good evening, sir. Hello. Good evening, sir. Good evening. I want to add, the same question is there. You must be talking about the bottom-up approach that the people, at the base level, the village level or the city level must participate. I think my idea is there should be some, formulation of a format type, the questionnaire, the format, the given to the people at the grassroots level, so they can formulate something, That way, I think it will be more participatory. Thank you.
My name is Arun Virmani. I also happen to be an architect like Ravindran, but not as bright as him. But I have dabbled into many things. I will say I generally have the last word, but I'll say half the word. You have touched me completely, my heart. Completely. And like you said offline, I would like to connect with you offline. And I dare commit myself that I will work to your cause. I will understand. Why I have saying this? Because I am more exposed to America, New York, whatever. And major difference is that this population is too much, there the population is less, more money, more. But we'll work it out. We'll find some way. Where there's a will, there is a way. More than that, I don't want to say. That's why I've said half the way. Thank you very much. You have opened. I've been here since morning 10 o'clock, right? And I'm going late. I have to go very far. But this is the best moment I see. And thanks to Mr. Suresh. And thanks also to my mutual loyalty with my friend Divya Kush. I'm here, sincere. More than that, I'm not saying I'm not committing, but I'm committed to you. I have also attended some small meetings in USA where I don't identify, but I would like to. I would like to invite. Thank you very much. You made my day.
Thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Namaste, everyone. I would like to point out that it was a very lucid and clear speech. It really kind of told us to get involved in participatory democracy. You also mentioned that India is doing rocket launching. In fact, we are taking payload of several countries. We are one of the few countries. But our waste management is in a very poor condition. However, I would like to point out that there is a simple rule which is cropped up in several cities, which is very, very heartening and very simple rule, which says waste bulk generator rule. What it says is the waste bulk generators, like large apartment complexes, shopping malls, it could be tech parks, anyone having more than 100 kgs have to do in situ waste management by way of composting or biogas. This is a very significant rule because more than 50 to 60% of waste comes from waste bulk generators. If they can process in situ the unbridled growth of cities and municipalities, that actually can create less load on them. And also, 50 to 60% of waste, especially the organic waste, which is a major culprit, will not go to the landfills. So, since you are working with the governments, I would like to tell you, sir, that this waste bulk generator rule has to be made mandatory, kind of enforcement. There is a carrot and stick policy also. If you don't follow this in situ rule, you will not get the occupational certificate or the licensing renewal. The carrot can also be giving property discounts. Pune has actually made property discounts, and several cities, like even Bangalore, is having this rule. And I'm proud to tell you, being a small company, I'm processing more than 300 tons by providing 378 plus plants in pan-India basis. So this waste bulk generator rule can apply to even New York City or even Tier 3 or Tier 2 cities. I just wanted to let you know that this is a very simple and very effective rule. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Viswanathan, for the excitement that you have generated. I hope this continues. Now, our final speaker is another very well-known architect. I don't need any introduction, really. Mr. Ravindran was apart from being in the Delhi Urban Art Commission, he's a very well-known architect. And he's a practicing architect, which is a very good thing. He's currently a member of the Kerala State Urbanization Commission, he's a trustee for the Madhavan Nair Foundation, Kochi, he's the chairman of the governing committee of Goa College of Architecture, delivers public lectures in various fora and urbanization, member of the advisory board for the UN Capital Master Plan, New York. He taught urban design for 3 decades. In SPA Delhi, he was Dean and Senior Academic Advisor, RSC School of Built Environment, former Chairman of Delhi Urban Art Commission, and was the founding President of the Institute of Urban Designers of India. Mr. Ravindran.
This is your phone? No. All right, sorry. Yeah. Thank you, all of you, for being here at this late hour. At the onset, I'd like to thank Municipalika for inviting me to speak here, particularly V. Suresh, an old friend and colleague at the Kerala Urbanization Commission, and to you, sir, Mr. Chairman, for permitting me to speak today. Now, after that fabulous talk by Srikanth, very focused at the intersection of democracy, urban governance, and finance, I will now take you to kind of a wider domain of urbanization, and not necessarily in problem solving for urbanization, but looking at the possible directions we'll have to choose, part by compulsion and part as prospect. So my presentation basically focuses around 3 issues, which I'll very quickly show you through a PPT. Now, the first is that even though we have a very elaborate network of local bodies and election systems, and we are 70 years old in our democratic experiment, and we have a strongly functioning democratic apparatus at the local level, we still have not solved the problems of our cities. We have not even taken full cognizance of the prospect of what we have in our cities. So that's the direction that I'd like to move. I don't want to bore you by reading statistics. Some of it is on the screen. I'm sure you can read the screen. But what I'd like to emphasize here is that the methodology that we have used so far to deal with our urbanization process has been through the master plan process. We have lots, hundreds of cities in India have prepared master plans, and we know today that those master plans have failed to deliver quality of life in our cities. Now, that is a general problem from where we need to depart in our thinking. And apart from having failed to deliver our problems, deliver solutions to the problems of the city, we have not even managed to contain urbanization in any form, or even understand how the processes of demographic change is impacting the quality of life in cities. So the Kerala Urbanization Commission was a great ground for experiment. Our chairperson, Dr. Satish, is sitting here. Mr. Suresh was an active member looking at local finance, local governance, and so on. And I had the privilege of dealing with the issues of habitation and built environment. So I'll very quickly move to the idea that's expressed in the map here. The idea is that we have moved away from the last Urbanization Commission report, which was prepared back in many years ago, 40 years ago by the so-called titled Charles Correa Commission, had come out with the idea of very interesting ideas of having a kind of a constellation of cities where you will have focuses in big cities, and there will be satellites which are around it, and each city was seen as in fact the most popular term, city as an engine of growth, was in fact introduced in that report. And since then our patterns have completely changed. Now what we have is that we are building large corridors connecting urban centers, and in between founding new foci within the corridors. Now, this means large-scale investment in linear connectivity between large settlements, both in terms of road and rail, and that is it's a totally different pattern from the constellation pattern of having one city with its satellites around them. So this is a major shift that's happened in our country, and first thing is that we need to take cognizance of this, and from this should be our place of departure. Now, I'd like to focus on three critical issues regarding urbanization that need to guide our future course of action. The first one is that there is a climate crisis. It's no more a problem, it is a crisis, and the need for creating resilient cities. That is the first issue. Second issue is that we need to look at the technological disruptions and the uncertainties of urban futures. Technology is going to disrupt the course of almost everything that we do. It's going to change the way we look at finance. It's going to change the way we look at transportation. It will change the way we inhabit our spaces, our public spaces. It will change the way our work centers are organized. It will change almost everything that will govern city design till now. So all the parameters that we have developed over all these years, last 70, 80 years, in terms of dealing with cities, are going to be under massive disruption. Third point is that we need to still maintain the human face of our cities. That's something that we should not forget. However, everybody is pushing for more and more GDP, higher GDP, more efficient cities, and people would like to, like us, believe that the future lies in increased speed, better flow of money, better movement of people, etc., etc. But we are not looking at quality of life. And that gap between the planning process and the experience of living in cities, that gap is what we need to address. That gap is where we have failed our people in, not in our intent to do good plan, but in our ability to execute that plan into a viable, experienceable action on ground for people. This is where we have failed, and this is the area that we need to look at. I'll quickly, the process I'm doing is, I've adopted here is that after each of these, I have 2-3 slides on each of these issues. And we have, when I change the slide, we have an image. I won't speak too much on the image. There are some text there, so you can probably read it. But the issue here is, how do we deal with climate crisis? Yeah? And how the climate crisis is going to force us to look at land. It's going to force us to look at the hydrological systems. It's going to force us to look at how the sea-land interface is functioning. It's going to force us to look at how our mountains are behaving. Yeah? So there are very, very critical areas of environmental impact of urbanization, which must now find priority if we have to address the problem of climate crisis. So it's not that we can stop the climate crisis from unfolding itself. It has already begun to unfold, and perhaps there is no stopping of it. It's not in our powers to stop it. We can do better demand management in energy, water, etc., etc. We can manage our cities better, and that will make a small difference in the kind of load we put on the climate crisis. But the major reasons for climate crisis are things like solar flares, and therefore the changes in the inside of the earth, the thermal changes that's happening inside the earth, and the melting of the polar ice and so on, and this subsequent sea level rise. So there's a direct correlation between the temperature rise and sea level rise. And that is going to be an issue that is completely beyond our hands. So what can we do here is to ensure we have to look at what will create resilient cities. So that's the first point that I'd like to make, that if we ignore landform, which we have done so far in our master plan process, we have always looked at land as a measurable, quantifiable, and therefore tradable resource, yeah? And not as a pure design resource. The shape and size of the land, the profile of the land must yield the way we lay our cities out, which is where we have failed. That's why every city in India is flooding, because we have failed to look at the land profile. It's a very fundamental thing. Land is the primary resource of design. And if we refuse to look at the primary resource, we are going to pay through these floods. Yeah? And I don't want to go into details of how flooding happens for different reasons in different cities. That's a very elaborate discussion by itself. Now, in the act of building resilient cities, we must remember that we are finally designing for people. We are finally planning for people and not for land or water. Yeah? So, as much as we create resilient cities, that is systems which are resilient in the climate crisis, we also need to create resilient communities which are able to cope with the changes which are going to take place in the environment, the disruptions which are going to come up in the environment. The disruptions are actually far and wide, and perhaps I don't have the time to go into those details, but it's a whole science by itself, and those disruptions will have to be met by and dealt with by communities at local level. there is no way that someone else from the outside can come and advise us as to how to deal with the flooding that is happening in your own backyard. We'll have to do that ourselves. Yeah? So the focus now should then shift to habitation and neighborhoods. Unless we move this concern about the larger issues of planning, the vision that we are projecting out for future, unless that is moved to the local level, locality level, at the neighborhood level, this problem is not going to be solved. And final quality of life is about how well can you, how happily, how joyously you can interface with your own environment. And that is the location of the neighborhood. Neighborhood is not just a mechanism for distributing facilities, social amenities, and physical infrastructure. Neighborhood is a place where we nurture our families, we live our lives, we play with our children. That's the place where quality of life is defined. And neighborhood should become the new focus for planning, not highways, not railroad systems, not all the other stuff that we are talking about when it comes to larger levels of planning. I'm not saying that it's not required to do that, but that alone is what has engaged us all these years, and it has failed us miserably in dealing with the quality of life of our people. I think this is where our future vision needs to move. Next, I'd like to focus on how technology is going to disrupt our lives. Yeah? Now, the image that you have here is of a data center in the UK. We don't realize that this data that we are communicating, right now this is being recorded, it's being transmitted, it's going to be, I don't know whether it is on the YouTube or not. We take all these things for very easily for granted, and we talk about AI as fantastic thing. Of course, it's a fantastic thing, but what is it that we are paying for it? That is the question. The amount of water consumption that goes into these centers where this data is processed, the amount of electricity they consume, amount of land they consume, and the inhuman environment that they create. All these are issues that we are able to brush under the carpet because we've been very tantalizingly sold the idea that the future of technology is the future of mankind. I'm not saying that we don't need technology, but we need to understand that when we are inviting the whole world to come and put up their technology here, we need to understand that drinking water in your glass is going to go down. That environment that you are living with, the amount of energy that you are consuming is going to be contested and expensive. Now, I just want to paint that larger scenario where we need to look at the issue of technology and its change from a more holistic perspective, where we see both the positive and the negative on the same front. Now, the next issue is how a lot of the traditions we are used to are going to be disrupted. The manner in which we produce culture, what we call culture, will also get redefined. It's already redefined. We can see how Gen Z sees culture and how we see culture, or our 35-year-old see culture, or our 20-year-old culture, and how our 12-year-old is looking at culture. It's very different perspectives. Yeah? And those perspectives are mostly impacted by technology and changes in technology. So traditions are going to change. A lot of the traditions that we are used to are going to change. The way we commute is going to be completely disrupted. The manner in which we go to work in a car, automobile, and park somewhere, park in our own dedicated parking and go into an office which is dedicated to us, which lies vacant when we are not there, all that will be disrupted. It's already disrupted. It's not going to be disrupted. It is already disrupted. So we need to navigate these disruptions, and that is going to be a biggest challenge of urban India. How are we going to to navigate this distance. Now, along with this, we'll have an increased migration of people into cities, where we'll have a new kind of refugees called the climate refugees. People who are externed by extreme climatic conditions in the rural areas, who will be forced to move to the cities because there will be no water there will be no power there. Yeah? So they will have to move to cities where they'll have rudimentary work, they'll have power, water, and other basic necessities for living. So there will be a new kind of new patterns in immigration into cities, migration into cities, and all the projections that we are used to by looking at past 10 years of pattern, we analyze the past 10 years of pattern through data which is collected, and we assume that pattern will continue. That pattern will not continue. That pattern will be disrupted. And that new disruption will pose new problems, new challenges for our urban planning and urban design. There are lots of it, you can talk for an hour about this, but I won't go into that. So, second point I want to emphasize is the manner in which we have been planning these days. We train a group of people in the urban sector, like we have urban planners, we have urban designers, we have transport planners, we have all kinds of housing specialists, we have all kinds of specialists who chalk out a plan of their own and they project it without any interface with each other. In most cases, in complete isolation, they work as silos of design. Yeah? But that pattern will have to change, and we have the prospect when the new technology comes in, we have the possibility of accessing each other's actions and therefore coordinating and reorienting our direction of action in that process of decision making. So this is going to be, the collaborative is the only mode in which the future mode is going to work. It's not going to work in isolation. Yeah? And of course, the future visions that we project also will have to be collaborative visions. That is not, it can't be from urbanization as one section and technology as another and so on, or climate crisis as another. For convenience, one has divided them into categories, but they'll all have to work together as joint visions. Now here, one of the most important shifts that we'll have to do is to change our method of dealing with cities, shift away from this two-dimensional planning that we are so used to, drawing, blue, green, and yellow colors. We put patches like a stitched quilt. We have master plans made all over the country. But that doesn't represent any reality, nor does it translate into any lived experience. So we'll have to move into a mode of three-dimensional design. And technology today offers you the opportunity to move so swiftly into third dimension. And it will become imperative that we move towards stronger urban design policies to be able to deal with the third dimension of our cities. If this is not done, we won't be able to bridge that gap between our intent in planning, very well-meaning plans that we make, and the actual lived experience of the people. That gap is what we need to address, and that requires three-dimensional planning, three-dimensional vision. The point that I'm trying to make is about the shift that we need to do, and from urban planning to urban design. I'm not saying that urban planning is required. Urban planning is an absolute must. If we need to have a civilized habitation, you need to have an urban plan. But unfortunately, we know from the last 70 years of work that that is just not sufficient to deliver quality of life. If you want to deliver quality of life, we have to shift to third dimension of thinking. I'll quickly move to the last section where we need to look at how humanizing our environment is more critical as technology is advancing on one side, as financial systems are getting larger and more global, the texture of development is getting larger and larger. We need to very deliberately look at how to humanize our environment. I'm using the example of the IIC in Delhi here as the image to represent the idea that I think it's one of the most humane environments. You know? The building kind of embraces you as you enter it. The space holds you fondly, and that, I think, is the humanity that is missing from, say, if you go to Nehru Place, yeah, which is a functionally well-designed urban design product, but it loses the human touch. When you enter there, you know that you are an alien being there. You're there to do a business and get out, not to linger around and look other people in the eye. That opportunity needs to be emphasized, and we need to look at how to provide that through our design experience. So the public open spaces and the quality of the lived experience of the city becomes the primary motive of urban design. In future, if you are not able to give quality to the lived experience in a city, that city is not going to attract people, nor will it attract any investment, nor will it attract any quality of life. I've gone past the time, so I'll be very fast. Here the point that's being made about condensing of localities is to look at locality as a conceptual frame, not as a physical entity, which is where you live and work and so on, but as a conceptual frame, as a social entity. The locality needs to be condensed into an experienceable entity. And then they need to be connected with the larger and larger settlements. So the emphasis will be on more technological application in moving people. At the same time, it is also in using technology to anchor people where they are, so that you provide space for children, elderly, physically challenged. Everyone needs to be accommodated in a more humane kind of environment in the locality. When you say locality, I'm using the term locality specifically not to equate it to a neighborhood. Neighborhood has many different dimensions. But a locality is something to which you belong. Yeah? Not a neighborhood. A neighborhood is a functioning entity. A locality is something to which you are emotionally connected. So it is here that quality of life needs to be expressed. Now the last point I want to make is that we need to move towards, from efficient cities. I'm not saying that our cities must be inefficient, but from efficient cities we need to move towards caring cities. Cities which care for their citizens. Yeah? People who will feel that they are part of a city. There's a sense of ownership, there's a sense of belonging, and in return, the city and its administration is able to care for its citizens. So moving towards efficient management and moving only more and more towards creating higher and higher GDP in cities, we need to develop cities which are able to care for its citizens. And that would mean that you have healthy citizens, and if you want to have healthy citizens, you need healthy environment. So it's always one health and one environment. They are not two separate entities. If you don't have a healthy environment, you don't have healthy citizens. And if your citizens are not healthy, they are going to destroy their environment. In other words, if we see such distress in our cities, it is because we are not healthy in the way we have organized our lives in cities. Now that's the last point I wanted to make. Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you, sir. This is from Udaipur. Yeah. is from Udaipur. I have simply tried to bring out the fact that local people come out to an existing resource, and these are not tourists, these are people who live there. And the moment they sit in front of that water, they know that this is their city. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, thank you, sir. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Any final questions, comments? Please. The gentleman. Okay.
Before going on to my question, sir, I would like to congratulate Mr. V. Suresh Saab for his excellent selection of speakers, and this is something rare, I tell you, sir. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sir, what a wonderful presentation you have said, and really very soulful. And all the speakers actually, the three of you really spoke very seriously the soul of what's happening today. But why are we there is the basic question, and what we do want to do it. It's not this seminar. It should not, I would like to request V. Suresh Saab to take this discussion forward, because this is very rare discussion what has happened just now on this stage. Why are we there where we are? Because of the basic reason that our architect, our engineers have actually moved away from the ground realities. They hardly connect to the construction industry. For example, I'll just tell you, like this flooding of the cities, why it is happening? Because we are eating up the johors, the lakes, the ponds. Is it rocket science? No. Everybody knows it. But who to blame? Everybody knows that Gurgaon has a flood even after a 15 minutes rain. Britishers taught us what is drainage. Like, sir, आपने कहा था कि अभी की दोनों साइड में ड्रेन होता था. देहरादून में we had 1.5 meter drain by 1 meter drain. And in Gurgaon, we have a 8 inches Hume pipe which is taking care of a pura sub-city. It will block. The architects, like we are putting beautiful gratings on the roof, a 4-inch diameter pipe is just having 1 inch's drainage space because of the design of the grating. We have actually moved out. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board. We know the answers. But one thing I would like to suggest, that we need to have a curriculum in architecture and civil engineering to teach the impact of building good structures, as basic as curing of concrete. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. I am architect Sanjay Paul from Calcutta. I must thank at the beginning what Mr. Omesh Saigal had told us, that Calcutta is the best, cleanest city in India. So I am complimenting for this. And since Mr. Srikanth is there in the committee, Government of India, now what, as an architect and urban planner, what I think, can we now shift more concentration on the villages and towns instead of the cities? Too much pressure is coming on the cities. So if the activities can be shifted towards the villages and the towns, then that influx will not be there from the rural to the cities. So this is just my suggestion to you. Since you are in the committee, please think over.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, then I'll take this opportunity to thank all the speakers who have created considerable excitement in this area, and also to the organizers who have held us here. Thank you all. I think it's getting late, so we'll call it a day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We would like to say thank you to the chair and the two outstanding speakers. I'll give you the mementos. Come on there. I'll give one to you, sir, and you can give to the concern. Up, are you? And also the flag. Okay, tell a memento. If you can don't mind, we can give it to the other two speakers. Give it to me. Oh, there, like. Take it.